or
sexually
is
immoral. Like
yeah is hang on. Let me Glenn proposed that one. Let me Glenn. What was the exact prompt?
Yeah, are sexless marriages sexually immoral?
Sexually immoral, or not
Or,
just immoral?
Yeah, not just immoral, but sexually immoral. Meaning like it follows the line of what Jesus says in Matthew 18 about divorce. You can't divorce your wife unless it's for sexual immorality.
Yeah. All right. So, who's taking which side?
I guess I'm the affirmative because I said yes.
Okay, you're the affirmative. And
wait. So he says it is sexually immoral
Yes.
to have a sexless marriage. Okay, I'm saying it's not. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're good with that.
You're saying sometimes
you can have a sexless marriage. Yes, I'm saying.
Yeah, and it not be immoral. Okay. All right. Abe, when you're ready.
Okay, I would say that a sexless marriage, as defined as sex less than 10 times in 12 months or something like that for 7 years, as he stated earlier, would be sexually immoral. You're driving the spouse, regardless of which spouse, out of your home for that sexual gratification. And thus you are pushing the marriage to its brink of collapse, especially if it's not agreed upon, which generally speaking, sexless marriages would be unagreed, lack of sex for long periods of time. Without communication and reason for that sexlessness, you are committing a sexual sin by inviting in every other need to fulfill that sexless position.
You had 14 seconds left. Good deal. You ready, Patrick?
I am. My opponent has said why he's presupposed why there's sexlessness in the marriage, and that was kind of what he talked about most of the time. He's presupposed that it was not mutually agreed upon. However, if you're going by the Christian ethic, then like I was talking about with Glenn prior to this, Paul says it would be better that you be like me, where Paul is celibate as opposed to being married. However, if you can't avoid the burning in your loins, then get married so you can not sin while you engage in that activity. And so the purpose of marriage is it's one of the blameless passions, sex, right? It's just like sleep or eating, things like that. It's a blameless passion until you indulge in it. Just like being sloth is is the blamed version of sleeping. Gluttony is the blamed version of overeating. You essentially are, if you mutually agree, for example, to abstain for 40 days leading up to Easter, abstain for 40 days leading up to Christmas, or abstain for any length of time just because you're trying to avoid the passions, I don't think that's sexually immoral at all.
Okay,
by biblical standards.
That's your minute. All right. If there's any way that you can turn up your mic, Patrick, it's going to help you because you're very low.
All right, I'm sorry. Is this better now?
Yeah, that's like massively better. Yeah, good job. All right, 5 minutes starting now.
I don't believe that a sexless marriage is, as you said, both agreeing. I think a sexless marriage is when a party is withholding the sexual gratification of the other for distant periods of time.
Well, I mean, that presupposes why they're doing it. I mean, we can argue about why they're doing it or if they're doing it, but the whole thing is if the sexlessness at all is the topic of conversation. If they are sexless, is that sexually immoral? If they've mutually agreed that they're going to be sexless out of
it would be it's
virtue,
only sexless if it's not agreed. Otherwise, it would be a complete misnomer. It wouldn't matter. If it wouldn't even be reported as a sexless marriage because those people would have already agreed to it. They wouldn't classify it as a sexless marriage because they're having as much sex as they've chosen to have together. It's only a sexless marriage because one party has deemed that they are not receiving sex more than 10 times in a 12-month period.
Well, that's also, you're presupposing that. If both sides have agreed out of virtue that they're not going to engage in...
It wouldn't be classified as a sexless
explain to me
marriage,
the classification you're talking about, because if we both mutually agree to not engage in sexual activity, then that is a sexless marriage, is it not?
No, because that marriage has been an agreed upon term. The sexless marriage terminology literally means that it was not agreed upon, that the sex is not being given for like I said,
what determination are you using? Like, I don't understand
I'm
how
pretty
you're
sure the
defining the,
terminology
because
of
we're
sexless
talking about
marriage
biblically,
is.
we're talking about sexual morality. I don't understand what you're using to define this. Go ahead, sir.
I'm saying if one party has decided that they do not want to have sex, but there is no conversation or communication, or there has been, and they've agreed to have sex, and then they don't more than 10 times in a 12-month period, then that person is driving their partner away. And generally speaking, that's exactly what sexless marriage is. It's sex less than 10 times in a 12-month period, not agreed upon.
Yeah, you're just reiterating the presupposing thing, and I want to know the definition of what you're saying is a sexless marriage only because the two people, you're essentially
Because you
precluding what
wouldn't
I'm
report
saying.
it. You wouldn't report that you have a sexless marriage as a problem in your marriage if it wasn't a sexless
Well,
marriage.
why can't
If
you
you've
just report
agreed
it?
already, you
Why
wouldn't be
can't you just
reporting
report it
anything.
while not reporting it as a problem? I guess I don't
Because
understand.
people aren't reporting their sex lives if there's not a problem. If you're in a church, if you're in a marriage that is bound
That
by the church
presupposes their
and there
motives.
isn't a problem, no, I'm saying that that's exactly what is reported. When you look up sexless marriage statistics, it's literally one of the highest ranking things for why marriages break up. That and finance. So if that is a reason to end marriages, then that would be an immoral act. You are breaking the marriage because you are not giving the partner the sex that
Okay.
they require.
Okay, then I would agree. If we're going based on that definition, then I would agree with you that a sexless marriage, if it's not mutually agreed upon, is because you should submit to each other. But it's not sexually immoral to abstain for certain periods of time, specifically. But I don't agree with your definition. I think your definition is fundamentally flawed, and I think it presupposes a certain definition of a sexless marriage in the first place. I mean, it because when I say sexless marriage, I just mean the two individuals are not having sex, and that's whether they agreed upon it or not agreed upon it. And you're using a specific definition, whereas I'm using a more broad definition. And so I think for me, that's what the prompt is, and you're taking the affirmative on that, and I'm arguing against it.
I would say that I can't see how you could take a sexless marriage as meaning people that have agreed not to, when it is documented as a cause of cheating. It is documented as a cause of divorce. It is stated and documented repeatedly as this specific thing that causes the damage to the marriage, and thus would be sexually immoral, because withholding of sex is still creating a wound in the sexual relationship between the two people.
I'm
And thus it
not
would be
being
sexually
sexually
immoral.
immoral based on Christian standards if I'm abstaining for 40 days in Easter and you can't handle that. That's not
No,
sexual immorality.
did you agree upon it?
You would assume if you're having a Christian marriage that you would have agreed upon something like that. Yes.
Okay,
So
and is that doesn't
I'm
create a
gonna
sexless
assume
marriage?
my
40
own.
days, 40 days doesn't even counter in then, because it's a 40-day period. The rest of the year would still be functioning as normal.
Okay,
That
so
would be
in
fine. But
the
if it's
Roquefort calendar
less than
this year,
10
there's
times in
more
12
strict
years,
fast days than there are non-strict fast days. So therefore, you'd
oh,
be abstaining more days than non-strict.
so you're
Than
saying
having.
in 365 days, there's less than 10 days to have sex?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that not having
Well,
sex.
that's exactly what a
Not
sexless
having
marriage is.
sex. What I'm
That's
saying is
exactly what a
not having
sexless marriage
sex
is.
is
Right,
not
but that's
sexually
exactly what a
immoral.
sexless marriage is. Less
We're
than
just
10
arguing the
times
definition. Is
All
all we're
right,
doing.
12
gentlemen.
months.
That was good. That was real good.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it really was. And Glenn's still back there. I may have to pull him back up and get his opinion. I want to start with Ticky Tack on this time.
Yeah, so I like that Abe was actually giving a clear definition to what a sexless marriage is. And even when Patrick was coming back to say, it's like, even though he was like building a hypothetical to be like, oh, there can be a sexless marriage and still like be ethical, Abe like doubled down on a specific definition of, okay, well, when it comes to more of the legal sense of what causes divorces and things like that is of a sexless marriage, and he held to his definition. Where Patrick, I think you didn't necessarily like well define sexless marriage. You only just kind of claim that it's like you presuppose and reject Abe's definition. Well, if you reject it, I would like to see at least like, you know, some definition greater of like a sexless marriage. So that's where I'm kind of siding with Abe on this debate.
Okay, Hanson.
Abe created a proprietary definition in which he put the presupposition of an argument that would support his position inside of it, and Patrick continually called him out on it. Basically, the opposite of what Ticky Tack is saying has happened, and Patrick very effectively said that basically that presupposition was irrelevant, and said that it's just a sexless marriage, right? If you just don't have sex, right? So he was very clear, Ticky Tack. I don't know what debate you were watching. It was a very close debate though, and I saw it at 15 for Patrick and 13 for Abe. And there were a lot of opportunities there where I think that you could have called it a proprietary definition, Patrick, and it would have been easier for maybe Ticky Tack to understand, since he's in the debate bro sphere and he understands those trigger words because that's what the debate bros use. Just to learn the debate bro terminology, and Ticky Tack will be able to follow along.
You're muted. Okay. Cleaner, go ahead.
I actually I like that Patrick called out 4 of the fallacies that Abe was making, presuppositions, and the presuppositions were directly to what the definition of a sexless marriage is. And so Abe was presupposing a sexless marriage to be one specific thing that is a sexless marriage by one definition, by one of the many definitions. However, Patrick was saying it's just a marriage in which there is a lack of sex. However, that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong, which the actual definition of a sexless marriage specifically states that some couples may be content with a lack of sexual activity. So there may be reasons for not having sex. And I think he really spoke to the definitional understanding a lot better in this one, as well as calling out the 4 fallacies. I'd have to give this one to Patrick.
Okay. I want to get Glenn's opinion on just how how the debate went, since it was kind of his topic. So Glenn, welcome back.
Oh, wow. Thanks. It's hot down there. So I thought, Abe was doing well. He should have, I would have pushed back on him by saying, well, sex is only allowed in the confines of marriage. So if sex is not happening and one of the partners are not in agreement with the terms of the lack of frequency, and they're not having sex often, then that would be immoral. Because what does the rest of the scripture say? It says, then join together so that Satan does not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. So if one spouse is refusing to have sex with the other for whatever reason, other than medical or health reasons, along those lines, then you are opening the door for temptation to, get your partner. And that would be immoral.
Well, I thought I conceded that point, actually, in the debate.
I didn't hear it.
Well, no, actually, I think what you did was you conceded it would be a bad thing, but it wouldn't necessarily be immoral because there's no moral that's being violated. That was what you said, which I mean would go along with what you were arguing, the side you were arguing.
That's actually more accurate. What I said prior.
This was a really great topic. Actually, it went differently than I thought, which is really good, because a lot of the topics that all the topics were great tonight. We didn't really have one that just kind of fell flat that you guys didn't really try on or anything like that. So that's good. This one, I can see Ticky Tack's point of view. I also see Anson and Cleaner's point of view. And this is Abe, man, I like the tactic. I liked you just kind of sticking to that one point. But I feel like that once Patrick just kind of conceded, not having sex in a marriage isn't necessarily a bad thing, or isn't necessarily the wrong thing to do.
I would disagree because the Bible says, to enjoy the youth of your wife, right? May her breast always, the breastises, like, so it's like,
All
okay, well, if you're not
definitions.
having sex, then how can you enjoy that? How can, you're
All
I
definitions
don't.
are
I mean,
proprietary.
yeah. I think that Patrick was right to do that, but I think you could have, Abe. I think you could have come back at him with, I wouldn't have gone. I don't think I would have gone biblical. I would have just said, well, how moral can it be to deny your your partner? You've married this person. How moral can you be to deny that now? And I would have conceded to him that, okay, if it's an agreement that there's no sex, right? If this is because for example, my mom and stepdad, my stepdad slept on the couch, my mom slept in the bedroom 90% of the time after they turned 50 or 60, maybe, I don't know, whenever. They agreed to that, right? Maybe once, twice a year they get together, get a little, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. None of my business. Don't care what my parents did. But the reality is that there are couples that do that. And you should have conceded that point and said, yeah, okay. But the exception doesn't make the rule. The rule is that in marriage, that is, a primary component of marriage is sex without guilt.
I did say if they've agreed upon it, then that's fine. It's not the same thing.
That was more the perspective.
Yeah, he did say that.
Right. It's like I understand the whole idea of like Abe is setting up a proprietary definition and Patrick's setting up a general definition. But the thing is, when it comes to a debate, it's like everybody's going to hold somewhat of a proprietary definition, and it's about coming to an agreement of what that definition is within the debate, so you're not talking past each other. And that's all I really saw here was just people talking past each other, while Abe had a proprietary definition that really held true to why the sexless marriage is sexually immoral under a proprietary definition.
Yeah.
And so when two debaters have a difference in a definition, do you know what the default stance is supposed to be at that point? The actual definition that is used in the textbook. So like, I mean, you would have to go back to the baseline definition since they can't agree on it. I would just going off of that. Well, that's literally how debates are structured.
Well, I would disagree, and don't just say that without me making an argument.
Wait, do you think that most marriages that are sexless are because they've agreed or because they haven't?
I think it's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter.
If the debate topic was what is a sexless marriage, then yeah, we would default to the general definition. But the debate topic is a sexless marriage sexually immoral? So that adds additional context to it, where it's like we cannot fit within generalities, and we actually do need to start thinking about the proprietary definitions of like, okay, what is a sexless marriage?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Yes, necessarily.
Because in a debate, when you can't agree upon a definition, you won't be able to have the debate or have any kind of construct that you can fight for or argue that the other person will be able to approach.
Well,
and so by default, you have to go to.
Because you can't agree doesn't hold one definition over the other.
And I agree with that.
No, it doesn't. You're right. What it does is it says, okay, you're both wrong. Let's go to this definition and see who approaches the most.
No, exactly. Then the debate becomes.
That's where Patrick approached the most by saying, well, that's just one of the many different kinds of a sexless marriage. And that actually speaks to the actual definition of a sexless marriage, because there are many different kinds.
No, under me, Abe, his definition actually spoke to me more, because under the context of
it was only
and let me complete. Under a sexless marriage is sexually immoral, Abe actually got to the root of the topic of what is actually supposed to be defined as. It's not this just generality. What you're saying is you're appealing to what is the definition of sexless marriage without the context of sexual immorality.
So in my opinion,
you're engaging in a modoscope fallacy with that, though, Ticky Tack, because you're saying that because he came to a conclusion that means that
No,
his
he didn't. He
definition
didn't. No, he
carried
didn't
more
come to
weight.
a conclusion.
But
No,
the
he didn't come.
definition did
He
not
didn't.
follow.
No,
The
no,
definition did
that's
not
you're
follow
wrong with pointing
with
out
more.
fallacy. There was no conclusion
No.
drawn. We were trying to come up with a definition
No,
based off the
he was
context.
I thought-
using
I-
one
Hey,
of
Guys,
many
calm down.
definitions.
Just
I
one minute.
thought when he was talking about sexless marriage, he was pointing out how this type of sexless marriage would fall under being immoral and would be defined for or to meet up for divorce under sexual immorality. So that's why I
would
thought
have been-
he did good.
This is and this again, we're supposed to learn from this stuff, right? So Abe, you did define it, but what you didn't do is you didn't say to Patrick, can we agree on this definition? And if
True.
he said no, I don't agree with this definition, you ask him, and then you end up you really should have started and obviously hindsight, right? But you really should have started with, let's make a clear definition of what a sexless marriage is and agreed on what that is, and then you can argue your position from there. And that's just because this is, and you can see even amongst the judges, Anson Knowles, it's irrelevant what the definition is. To Tiki Tack, he felt like you made a good try at defining it. And Cleaner says, well, they both defined it. So at that point, you need to default to a
Debate
standard,
rules.
which we don't know. I mean, I don't have a dictionary here to. I mean, I guess I could Google it, but I don't have a definition handy either. Besides, in a debate like this, the opponents should agree on the definition that they're debating.
They should grid, but
understand.
in debates, if the two sides cannot agree on a definition, the debate should proceed using a reasonable and commonly accepted definition. A commonly accepted definition would be a Google definition because the social norm is agreed on it.
I would say that Abe actually made a commonly acceptable definition because of a sexless marriage is a
Right.
very common reason for divorces.
Right.
So
I'm
it
not
is a-
saying
it
no.
is a
Hold
common
on. You're adding more than just the definition to it. You're saying because but when we're looking at the
I'm not adding-
definition,
I'm not
right?
adding
We're
more.
just
I'm
looking.
not adding
No, you
more
are.
because
You
outside
said
of it-
his
because
carried
no,
more
because
weight.
outside of it,
You said his carried more weight
stop
because
telling you what
of
I said. Stop
extra
telling me what I
things.
said
That's
and
what you
listen to
said.
I say.
That's literally what you
Listen to-
said.
No,
Yeah,
no,
guys,
listen to what I'm
guys,
about
let's
to say
dial it
because
back
you
a little
didn't
bit.
listen to what I was saying.
Let me just say this as someone who lived in a long sexless marriage, who looked at the definition of sexless marriage because he was concerned that he was living in one for a long time. Let me just give you my opinion. The definition is actually irrelevant because the debate became about the definition itself and their ability to argue their position on the definition. And that's how I came down to what my judgment was, because I thought Patrick did a better job of defending his definition than Abe. It doesn't matter
Well,
what
I
the
have a
definition
different
is. If
side as well.
I thought
You both
Abe
define
did a
it
better
better.
job of defending his position on the definition, then I would have given it to Abe.
Yeah,
Right.
I gave it to
And
Abe because
that's-
I think he defended it better.
Yeah.
Well,
and
and see, that's why I was saying more so with Patrick because he spoke to all the definitions that were listed and tried to give give reasons for each of the definitions, not just one of the many definitions of a sexless marriage.
But then I think it was also disingenuous
Primary.
not acknowledging that denying for no reason would not be sexually immoral within the confines of a marriage. That's what Patrick didn't do. And if he would have done that, I would have said, yeah, okay, he would have done better overall by defining the different types. But by just saying, no, this is not this, I don't think
that would have been an automatic L for him, Glenn. He would have just been conceding the debate if he did that.
Well, they would have been honest.
No.
Well, not necessarily from his point of view.
And I did say it would be bad. I just didn't say it would be sexually immoral. Like I said that having a sexless marriage while in marriage, because I said what the purpose of the marriage is, from my point of view of the latter part of the prompt, which is sexual morality. I said it was to avoid the passions. Well, so yeah, it would be bad because I'm not allowing my partner to avoid the passions. But I don't think that the other person is being sexually immoral. We didn't get to the like specifics of that because we were arguing prior definitions. But I mean, Yeah, I did speak to this like much more briefly than I did now.
I still
I
say
liked it. I thought it was a good debate.
It was a good one.
it was a good one.
I think that I was prepared for for the debate to go in a direction of, just back and forth about who's right or who's wrong. It became about the definition in and of itself, and that made me actually kind of happy because again, it is very important, especially when you might be talking past each other, even to define define terms, right? Like this, do we agree that this is what this is? Okay, then this is what this is. And if you can't agree on, hey, this is the definition, then you kind of have to backtrack a little bit and find one, right? As Cleaner said, use the commonly accepted one. But if you're not going to accept either side, then the judges have to.
The problem is I don't know how that would even change my argument. Even if I accepted that the definition was, regardless of agreed upon or not agreed upon, it would be a greater number of marriages failed and more immorality happening, regardless of whether or not that. So,
well, I mean,
So you should have just conceded and made that argument. I mean,
yeah. So, Abe, I understand that. I understand where you're coming from.
And I agree that I should have pulled that in too. I'm not saying that
would have made a stronger argument.
If I had said that, it would have been better. I get that. I should have done that, and I did not. So I get it.
Yeah,
totally.
Okay.
The problem is that both of y'all are really good debaters, and unlike last time, Abe, when you made it into the last two, you actually tried this time. So it was really that was a really good debate.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. Y'all had such a good debate. It got all of us judges involved in debating it as well. I mean, dude, that's a fucking W for both of you guys.
Yeah.
Really.
W Abe.